If we were to approach this scripture from the perspective of the Nagarjuna's teachings of Madhyamaka school, then one could say that we can arrive at perhaps the most comprehensive understanding of the implications of that statement. So when it comes to talking about the philosophical viewpoints of Nagarjuna, even if people were to criticize me that I'm perhaps biased towards it, I would certainly accept that criticism.
Today, this is the tension of John Siddhartha. The petit Sadigi, the temperature, Sumupan said John. That tension of Johns. That the tension of John Siddhartha, Niala, Tum Kwa the Kareslamna. Do the can the Dane, do the can some the Dane John. That do you think
So when we try to understand this fundamental Buddhist philosophical principle of pratitha samuppada, dependent origination, the understanding of this principle that is common to all Buddhist schools is in terms of causal dependence. Pratit means to depend on, and samupada refers to origination. And the understanding that is common to all the Buddhist schools of thought is to look at this principle in terms of the causal dependence, to appreciate and to understand that all things and events come into being only as a result of interaction of causes and various causes and conditions.
That the implication has Lavina. Kasolbuge Dushin Cheve Chedi, Tamjalo, Dumbabal Chumaris. Any Chebab Royo Mondosana on the Cheva Maris, do the gain some the Dane, any Jumaris at the Shivari.
The significance of making this statement that all conditioned things come into being purely as a result of causes and conditions is to deny two possibilities. One is the possibility that they can come into being from nowhere, with no causes and conditions, causelessly. So that is one possibility that is being negated. And the second possibility that is being negated is that perhaps these things can come into being as a result of a transcendent sort of designer or a creator.
Tadine Tenjung Tanda Nibajiki Sukjengi Chejibina, any charge chair, charge charging Stajita, any Sumabas Mainani, Shivato, Lisbinani, Gazing Maji, any chat jetting. The condition of order, any Chakada Kaina, any chat jabbers. The name is an charging a church, Charlton and Dasha is that is magic the shape.
However, there is another dimension to this, to the understanding of this principle. That is to say, to understand principle of dependent origination in terms of parts and whole, the concept of parts and whole, how all physical objects, material objects, can be understood in terms of how parts compose a whole, and how the very idea of, very concept of wholeness depends upon the existence of parts. So there is that dependence in the physical world. And similarly, in the case of non-physical entities like consciousness, then you can look at these entities in terms of their temporal sequences, how unity, the very idea of unity and wholeness is dependent upon successive sequences that compose a continuum or a wholeness. So when you look at the reality or or universe in these terms, then not only can you understand all conditioned things as dependently originated, but also the entire phenomena could be understood in terms of this principle of dependent origination.
다들 숨버식이야. 아니 척하다 가이네. 다들잖아. 낭좀 되면서 다들잖아. 니야야 말이지. 아니 하면 매버스로나 매버 말이지. 오나 가르스로나 아니 척을 기하고다. 유진 땐지 척을 관계 얘는 두 대씩 유진 땐지 다 척을 때네. 아니 딱 점지를 해야지 시비야.
And then there is a further dimension to the meaning of this principle of dependent origination, which is to say that all things and events, in fact everything, comes into being as a result of mere aggregation of the many factors. And whereas when you analyze there is an understanding that it is simply in dependence upon others that they came into being, that they lack any independent or intrinsic identity or intrinsic existence. There is no autonomous existence or identity to anything. And the identity and existence that we perceive of things are, in some sense, contingent, which comes into being as a result of an interaction between our perception and the existence of the reality itself. However, this is not to say that things do not exist, but they do exist. But what is the case is that they do not exist with independent, autonomous realities.
다 땡중사디 그냥 고아지 가서래 거둔 뜻이 다 대대부 땡중기 통나 최 통그리 있어야 최대 그들 수 거슬러나 다 최대 뭔고 샤오문도 성도 뭔고 중문도 성기 유진 잠을 때네 봐 유진 잠을 때네 중에 땡중 통나 아니 디두기 다가다 디두기 패는 여등이 아니 패는 여등이 뒤에 유진 때네 연구여대 시니 아니 동네 다가다 디두기 디두 용야게 다 탑시 지야 되야 디두 동네만 용야다 대화 용야게 탑시 지야 돼 아니 유진을 때는 로고야게 딘데기 다 레줌데기 쳐도 와 어베 레줌데기 쳐디 될 때는 통토야도 와.
So, corresponding to these three different sort of dimensions or three different levels of meaning of the principle of dependent origination, one can also read three different meanings into this concept of dharma, because referring back to the statement again, to say that seeing dependent origination leads to the seeing of the dharma. So here, if we were to relate to the first level of meaning of dependent origination, which is in terms of causal dependence, by developing a deep understanding of interdependent nature of reality in terms of causal dependence, then one will be able to appreciate the workings of the karma, the karmic law, how experiences of pain and suffering comes into being as a result of negative actions and negative thoughts and behavior. Similarly, how sort of desirable experiences such as happiness and joy come into being as a result of causes and conditions that corresponds to that, such as positive actions and positive emotions and thoughts. So, by understanding the principle of dependent origination in causal terms, one will be able to develop a deep understanding of the law of karma.
다가는 신기 다 유진 잡는 때네 중에 땡중기 내로 직 통일을 전에 왔다 가서 우리 신앙 뭐부 다시 지단한 뭐부 탐자로 간다 유진 잡기 교월 때네 아니 교월 나서 용이에 되봐 다디지 코살리티 쉐임도 왔다 로 코살리티 다지 아니 가서 우리 교된 제비 땡지기 남샤 데이터네 제다 민주배 동네들아 대외 디기디에 다 준제기 팀 대원에는 로딩이지 셉차.
So once you develop a deep understanding of the principle of dependent origination in terms of causal dependence, what it does is it gives you a fundamental insight into the nature of reality, that everything that we perceive and that we experience come into being as a result of interaction, aggregation of causes and conditions. And you develop a fundamental perspective towards your own inner experiences and also towards the world at large, to see everything in terms of this causal principle. And once you have developed that kind of philosophical outlook, then you will be also able to locate or situate your understanding of karma within that principle, because the operation of the karmic sort of laws or karma is in some sense an instance of this overall general causal principle.
다지네 때는 딱배 땡중 다 차셔를 때는 딱와 가다다 민규왕 딱배 다 땡중 과 딜레윤도 아니 땡중 과 디ቷ네 짜요나 담바르 나야 담바르 못주베 나네 미트부디디 인 셰임도.
Similarly, when you have developed a deeper understanding of the two other levels of understanding of dependent origination, these are understanding in terms of sort of dependence on parts and whole, and also dependence of the sort of interdependence between perception and existence, then one will be able to develop a deeper philosophical sort of perspective on the world, which is to appreciate that there is a disparity between the way things appear to you and the way things really exist. That what appears to you as some kind of intrinsic, autonomous, objective reality out there does not really fit the actual nature of reality.
나네 미tumba 나네 미tumba 지여되듯이 신이운도 신에다 말한서 emotion 나로리아 아니 가서르게 유진내수디 나네 미tumba 이버지라 아니 emotion 되게 비긴 진단데 아니 나네 tum벌이야 진 진대가 타네다 견 장용의 지기 딱 가다지 묘모 난게 묘모 차차 주제리 이 신의지
So once we are able to develop this perspective, this understanding that there is a disparity, a fundamental gap or a disparity between the way things appear to us and the way things really exist, once you appreciate that gap between appearance and reality, then you will gain a sort of a certain insight into the workings of your own emotion and your reactive sort of emotion towards events and objects. You will gain an insight that underlying our strong emotional responses or reactions to situations or events, we see that there is an assumption of some kind of independently existing kind of abiding object, some kind of objective reality out there.
제가 근데기 타네 아니 로이 가서 그게 로치라고 가시기 아니 그게다 신유매다 신유매도 시대야 직체 시대야 직체